There we go. All right, so everybody should be able to see my phone. You might notice that things look a little bit larger than they were before. I know that it's been hard for people to see my cursor on the screen, so I've tried to make some adjustments there. Hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to see. So without any further ado, I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to take us out to our camera roll, and we're going to work with two images today. One is of this church that was taken in Cades Cove in the Smoky Mountains, and the other of this country road or country lane in a little town in the south of France called Bouzies. We'll be taking these through their paces and coming up with images that look something like this, which is one of the kind of a cartoonish effect that we get for the church, and then also this country road in Bouzies. So to start us out, I want to introduce this one new app that I was mentioning. You notice that our church over here, there are 3 different exposures of this church. Well, this was taken with an app called AutoBracket. And AutoBracket is an app that creates an HDR image, a high dynamic range image. Now, in the first session, we talked about Vivid HDR, which is another tremendous HDR app that I really like. But there are several out there, and each one of them gives a different result. And so sometimes I like to try out different HDR apps. So the one that we're going to look at first is called AutoBracket, and I'm going to go ahead and pull that up on the screen right now. And again, I'm just going to go to my search cell here, and I'm going to type in Auto, A-U-T-O, and voila, there it is. This is what it looks like. It's got, you notice the icon has 3 exposures here of the same image, and that's exactly what this app's going to do. It's going to take 3 exposures of the same scene and allow us to combine those into a single exposure. So I'm going to tap on the icon to launch it, and here we are in the app. Now, I've got my finger on the lens, which is why the screen looks the way it does. But the important thing about this app, and the reason that I enjoy it, is that you notice down here you've got the slider, and as I expand this, what we're able to do is tell the program to how much light exposure difference to have in each of the exposures it takes. So when we're at the maximum, one of them will be at -6, one of the images will be at 0, and one will be at +6. And we can move that down along this continuum. Now the reason I like this, when you use any of the other apps, HDR apps that I've used, I've not seen that you have this kind of control over each of those, or over the separation of exposures. And so that's the nice thing about this particular app. So here's what happens when you take the picture. So I'm going to take my finger off the lens and just take a shot of my computer screen here. So that's what, let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let me turn it up this way. Is that better? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tap the shutter, and look what's happened. We now have 3 images down here. There's a dark, kind of a medium, and a very light exposure. Now, the app is asking us, would you like me to merge these into one? And I encourage you to try this and say yes, but trust me, I've done this and it doesn't work very well. So I choose not to use this particular app to do my merge. Instead, I say no to this question, and when I do, it simply saves those images to our camera roll. So I'm going to go back out to the camera roll, and here are our 3 images. So this is that shot that I just took. We've got a dark exposure, a medium exposure, and a very light exposure. So I'm going to go back to our folder where we have our picture. So that's exactly what happened when I took this picture of the church. I used AutoBracket, and it took 3 shots, each different exposures. So now, just like I did today, when I was prompted for that question of merging these 3 together in the AutoBracket app, I said no. Instead, there's another HDR app, and it's called Pro HDR X, and I'm going to pull that one up right now. And I usually just go out and tap X here, and it comes right up. So it's called Pro HDR X, and this is another HDR app that I often use, and it allows you to take pictures and blend them together. But the other cool thing about this app is you can blend pictures that were taken with another app, in this case like AutoBracket. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and launch this app and go back. Okay, so this is what the interface looks like, and you've got a flash icon. You can have your HDR turn on. This is all the settings you would use if you were going to use Pro HDR X to actually take the photos. What we're going to do, though, is go down here to these icons here at the bottom, and this icon at the bottom, and I'm going to tap on it, and you'll notice we have several different icons here. The first one I want to go to is the settings icon, because we have some settings in here I want to make sure we have right. So I'm going to tap on settings, and I will send this to you as a screenshot after the session. But these are the settings in Pro HDR X that you want to have if you're taking pictures, and when you're saving, you want to save at the full resolution. And then I always have my geotag on and these other things set in this way. But the most important thing is your resolution. You want to have the highest resolution file you can get, or at least I always do. So I'm going to go ahead and click Done and come back. So here we are. We've opened up Pro HDR X, and I'm going to tap on this icon down here again in the lower right. And the other option that I have is to click on the image icon. So when I tap on that, it's going to allow me to go out to my camera roll, and I can select those 3 photographs that I just took. Or in this case, I'm sorry, let's go back to, I want to go here, and we're going to select these 3 photographs to merge together, the church. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to tap the Done icon. And here comes our image. So now we've taken this image and we've merged it into one HDR image in Pro HDR X. Now it looks pretty crummy. We've got this area up here that's all dark. It's not the greatest exposure for this particular set of images, but that's okay. We've got some adjusters over here. We can tone things down. The first thing I'm going to do is just slide the HDR down a little bit and watch our sky improve. So right there, we've already improved that part of the image. Now, that's all we're going to use this for right now, is to merge those 3 shots. So let's just review that. We used AutoBracket to take the photo, and we got 3 images, a light, a medium, and a dark. We chose to not merge them together in the AutoBracket app, but we saved them to the camera roll. Then we launched the Pro HDR X app, and that's what we're in now. And we have selected these 3 images, and we've merged them in Pro HDR X. So now I'm going to go up here to the share icon. I'm going to tap on that, and I'm going to save the image. So now, if we go out to our camera roll, we can take a look at what we've saved. And so now here is our saved image in the camera roll, and we're ready to begin to work with it in SnapSeed. Now, I'm going to show you a different way, and again, SnapSeed, I know we keep going over that, but this is one of the most important apps in my workflow, and I've been showing you how we've copied an image and then pasted it into SnapSeed. Well, I'm going to show you a different way now. I'm going to hit the Home button, swipe down in the center of the screen, And I'm going to click the X here to clear my search cell, and my apps pop up in their SnapSeed. And by the way, because I'm in the holding my phone horizontally, we can see 6 apps up here instead of only 4 if I had it in the vertical position, which is something to sometimes helps you move back and forth quickly. So I'm going to tap on SnapSeed, and there's the last app or image I did. I'm going to tap on the open icon over here, and I'm going to go down, and now you see our choices. One of the choices is open the latest image. Well, the image that we just saved to the camera roll is the one we want to work with. So I'm going to tap open latest image, and there's the picture of our church. So it's just another way to get your work into Snapseed, kind of a shortcut way of doing it. So again, typically what I do is look around the image and see what's there that I want to crop out. Now in this case, we've got a person over here, we've got a car over here, all that stuff is there. We're going to get rid of it though because we're going to crop this in a square. So the first thing I'm going to do is come down and tap the pencil icon, and I'm going to go to our crop tool, tap on it, and it's coming up in the last aspect ratio selection that I made. Just to review this, if we go back over here and tap on original, it shows us the original aspect ratio of the image. And then to see our choices, the icon down here on the bottom, we'll bring those up. And here are all the different options that we can choose for different aspect ratios. The one I want to choose is square, so I'm going to tap on the square icon, and now we have our square crop. Now, in order to get rid of all these and get them out of the way, I'm just going to tap on the screen anywhere, and it puts those down out of the way. Now I can position my crop box where I want it, and I'm actually going to crop up from the bottom a little bit, and I'm going to crop down from the top a little bit, and I'm going to kind of get it right about there, is about where I want it to be. That looks pretty good, and that's my crop. So I'm going to click on the check mark, and now we're back into ready to make another adjustment in Snapseed. So now I'm going to go through and do, well, before I do that, I'm looking over here. I want to get rid of all of this junk up here, this part of the tree. I don't want that in my image. So I'm going to tap on pencil. I'm going to go to my healing brush right here. And again, I know I've said this before. This is a great tool if you're doing very simple healing, but if you have some complex things to do, the app Touch Retouch is much better. And I think I sent you a link to a little tutorial I did on that, on how to use that app. It's really simple and good tutorials in it and so on. So I'm going to expand this a little bit so I can see what I'm doing, and then I'm just going to go over here and use my finger and go down here and take that out. Look at that, it's gone. I got a few little hangers on down here. I'll tap out, but there we go. And so I'm not too concerned if it's not perfect down here because I know what we're going to do to this image and it's not going to matter. But there we go, we've cleaned it up, and now I'm going to click the check mark, and we're back. We've committed to our changes so far. So right now we've cropped and we've removed some stuff. So now I want to go through my regular workflow to style or to begin to edit the image. So I'm going to tap on the pencil. I'm going to go up to Tune Image, this one right here. Tap on that, and I'm going to scroll down to Ambiance, which is where I always start, and I'm going to take my finger and slide across to the right and ramp it up to 100. And I'm going to press on the screen and look at, there's before and there's after. And I'm probably going to I may back it off to about 75%. I'm noticing I'm getting a little bit of haloing around the church, but honestly I don't care too much about that because it's going to be, we're going to destroy this image in a minute with some filters and other things that we're going to do. So there's our ambiance. Next I'm going to go down to highlights. Now in this case there aren't a lot of highlights we want to mess with. Now remember, the highlights is the brightness adjuster for the bright spots in the image. So we can play with it a little bit and look and see, but I'm not seeing anything that it's doing to give us any better image. So I'm not even going to make a highlights adjustment like I usually do. And then I'm going to go down to shadows, and the same thing here. I can increase the shadows a little bit or decrease them. I typically like to decrease things a little bit, and maybe I will just a little, and it brings out some of the shadows in the side of the church here, and I'm good with that. So that's all the adjustment I'm going to do there, and then I'm going to go down to warmth, and I might just take this and warm it up maybe just a little bit. So here's our before, and here's our after. So very different image. We're starting to get some of it to kind of come alive. So I'm going to go ahead and click our check mark here, and now I'm ready to go in and do my sharpening. So I'm going to go to details, and again, I usually go up to about 20. Anything more than that, you want to be very, very careful that you're not over sharpening. And so I'm going to adjust both of those to about 20. And I do encourage you to expand the image out and look at what you're doing and see how it is. But typically, that's usually about where I end up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say OK to that. Now, one of the things, again, that we've done here is we've sharpened the whole image, and when we do that, we're starting to get a little bit of noise in the sky. So one of the things that we can do with this is mask. So I'm going to tap on stacks. I'm going to go here to View Edit, and over here you can see all the things that we've done so far, all the different layers or stacks. The last thing we did was the detail sharpening adjustment and structure. Well, if I click on the triangle here, these are the options that I have now. I can throw this layer away, I can go in and make further adjustments to the layer, or I can mask. And what I'm going to do is select mask. I have everything down here set, it's at 100, and I can adjust that by these arrows on either side, but I want it to be at 100 details. And then I'm going to take my finger and just paint on here, telling SnapSeed to apply 100% of the sharpening and structure to this part of the image, but not the sky. So again, this is just a way of keeping our sky clean and clear without the noise that can come from sharpening. So again, I'm being very hasty here. Someone asked me the other day, I do use a stylus sometimes, and I was asked what's the best stylus to get, and what I've discovered is the cheapest one. I've used $2 ones from China, and I've used $25 ones from Best Buy, and there's not much difference for this kind of work. So I would say find a cheap one and go with it. So once we have that, I'm going to hit the check mark down here. Oh, and by the way, in order to see your marks, you want to have the eye turned to blue. So if you tap on it, you can tap on and off, and that allows you to see where your marks are for your masking. So I'm going to check the check mark, and now we're back to our stacks, and we're ready to go back with this button to our home screen. So now we've made all those changes. The last thing I want to do, I still want to do my tonal contrast. So I go down to tonal contrast. Remember, this is the one that comes in at a default of 30, 50, 30, not just 0. So the first thing I do is press on the screen, and I'm seeing the changes. And you know what? I kind of like what's happening in the church, but I don't like what's going on in the sky. So I'm going to say OK to that change, and just like we did before, I'm going to go up to the stacks. I'm going to go to my edits. I'm going to go to the tonal contrast arrow, and I'm going to select the brush. And once again, I'm going to mask in this area where I want the tonal contrast to be applied, and leave the sky unaffected. So again, I'm going very quickly here, but you get the idea. You can be more precise if you want. And now I'm going to click the check mark. So now, when we go back, we've got our sky. It's still relatively clean without a lot of noise, but we've got our adjustments elsewhere in the image. So that's everything that we're going to do in SnapSeed. So I'm going to go ahead and tap the Save button, or icon up there, and choose Save a Copy. And again, our original is fine in the camera roll. We've got our copy out in the camera roll too now. Let's go take a look at that. And there's our copy that we just made. And incidentally, if we open this up again in SnapSeed, all those stacks come with this image, and we can continue to edit it once we get there. So now, this is where the fun starts with this image. The next app that we're going to use, this was on the list that I shared with you, and it's called Enlight. And this is a really amazing app. It looks like this. This is one of those apps where you can get in there and do just a tiny bit, or you can go very deep with this app. It has many, many features and capabilities, and I encourage you to look into it. On my website, I've got a tutorial that I use. It's a great app for giving your images a very soft glow, if you like that effect, kind of a Orton effect, if you will. Orton was that guy that took 2 or 3 slides and sandwiched them together, and in the process gave the image kind of a soft, ethereal glow. You can achieve that using Enlight. What we're going to use Enlight for today is something a little different. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the app. And oops, let's get back out of here. Okay, so we're going to select our image. This is the church that we're working with. And by the way, this is going to look different depending on how I have it positioned. Right now I'm holding my camera in the horizontal position. I'm going to turn it upright into the vertical position. This is the position that I normally work in. So I'm going to leave it this way just so we can, this is how, a little easier to see the tools and everything. So I'm going to close this, I'm going to tap on this icon up here. Sometimes when you open up, it looks like this, and you need to go find your tools. So around here, around the outside, you've got several icons. You've got your a camera to take a picture, you've got your save box, and then over here, when you tap on these 3 lines, it pops out the menus that you have available to you. And there's, like I said, there's a whole bunch of different things. What we're going to choose here is filters, and then we're going to choose tools. So I'm going to tap on tools, and now within tools, we're going to go to this feature called reshape. And when I tap on it, it's just a really cool feature for distorting an image. And you know, there are times when you might want to do that to play around, like I've done with this church. You've got several different icons that you can choose from that will give you different effects. And I encourage you to play with them all and see what they do. The one we're going to use right now is called reshape. And I'm going to go down and tap on reshape. And then I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to start playing around. So I'm going to start by pulling this wall out over here. I'm going to pull the tail of the church up. I'm going to pull this down and over a little. I might pull this down and slide this. So all I'm doing is dragging my finger, and you can see how I've warped these lines. Now, one of the things that you'll notice, I want to show you, if I take a point right here and pull my finger up, watch the bottom of the frame. See what's happening down here. It starts to pull the pixels in a funny way, and you get this weird distortion at the bottom. So that's something you may want to, maybe you want to build that into your image, or you may want to avoid that a little bit. I'm going to choose to avoid it. I'm going to try and do some pulling around here. And again, each time you do this, it's going to have probably a little different effect. I'm trying to replicate what I did before, and you know, I may or may not succeed. Now I'm going to come up here and grab the steeple and kind of pull it up a little bit, and so I'm trying to give the church a little bit of odd character with this distortion. And that looks pretty good. That's kind of, maybe I'll pull this down just a tiny bit. And again, this is your creative mind at work when you get into doing this. So you'll come up with all kinds of different things. Pull that a little bit that way. There we go. Okay, so once you get that to where you want it, and you can use this arrow, by the way, to go back. So if I tap the back arrow, I'm stepping back through the different steps. So, and then I can tap the forward arrow to go back to where we ended. So you have a little bit of control back and forth there. So once I get this where I want it, I'm going to go up and tap the check mark in the upper right. And now just like in SnapSeed, we've committed to changes, but we haven't saved the image yet. So we're going to go up here to this icon and tap on Save. And then we would come over here and save the photo. So now, if we go out and look in our camera roll, there's our distorted church out of Enlight. So now we've got this great new distorted church and kind of a comic book kind of look. Reminds me of those cartoons in the 50s where the building would breathe, or there would be music and it would be, you know, welling and swelling and closing. So anyway, so the next thing we're going to use, and here's another app that I'm going to introduce that I didn't tell you about. Sorry about that, but hopefully you'll see it as a bonus. The app is called DistressedFX. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up here. Type in DSF. It looks like this. It's got like a raven in the sky for an icon, and it's called DistressedFX. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up. It looks like this when you first open it. And it's just a really cool app for adding textures and filters to an image to give it all different kinds of looks. And that's what we're going to do with our church. So I'm going to go up here to the camera icon and tap on it and go out and get our image from the library. So there's our photo. I'm going to go ahead and click on the camera roll, and I'm going to get that one and pull it into DistressedFX. Now, down here we could size this, we could crop it, we could do different things with it, but we could enlarge it. We've already done that in SnapSeed. I don't usually do my crops in here, but you have the option, so I wanted to show you. So now I'm going to choose the image by tapping the button in the lower right, and it pops it into our view cell here in the DistressedFX app. So down here you have two different rows of filters and textures that we can apply to this image. And they work in tandem, so you can pick from this row and apply them both at on the same picture, same image. So I'm going to scroll across here, and it just works just like all the other presets we've seen. You tap on the icon, and it applies the look to the image. So I'm kind of going through here. Pick one that I like. There was one here I really liked. It was I don't know where it is. Anyway, we'll pick one. This is where what happens. I get in here and I'm like, well, I don't know. I like this. I like that. Let's go with Finch. Let's go with Finch. Kind of like that little bit of yellow in the sky. So now we've chosen this one. Now let's go down here, and this is where you start getting really heavy texture. So I'm going to choose this first one just to show you. This is probably one of the more intense of the textures, called Pith. Look at this. You get this really deep, like globs of paint kind of look on your image. And again, you can go through here and you can choose all these different styles and looks as you go along. Now, one thing I want to point out to you, you see this one? This one's called Laid. If you look at this image, do you see this line right here? That I've gotten to know these different filters so well that I can look at pictures and say, oh, that person used the Laid filter texture from DistressedFX. Not a big deal, but I kind of like hiding those things. They're called tells. It's a telltale sign in the texture that, if repeated, can give away the fact that you've used this. I like a little more unique. So I wouldn't discourage you from using this, but you might take this into Image Blender and use some of those techniques that we've learned in Image Blender to soften this or to kind of hide it so that it's not a tell in your image. But let's go and just pick, let's try Sentiment, Absent, I don't know, which one do we want to get? Let's see. Tarnish, that's the one I want. Okay, so I just really like this look. Now, everything that we've applied right now is at 100%. We got 100% of this Finch thing, and we've got 100% of our texture. Well, if we go up here to these sliders, it gives us an opportunity to play with that a little bit. If I tap on that, now we have our controls. We have a slider down here in our filter and a slider down here in our texture. And if I take one of those and slide it to the left, I'm reducing the opacity or the strength of that particular filter on the app. Same thing down here. I can tone it down and kind of make it a little less prominent. Now, the other thing you've got is a brightness slider over here, so you can brighten the image by sliding up or sliding down. And you've got a color slider here on the bottom, so you can intensify your saturation, kind of saturate the colors more. And then over here is a contrast slider, and just a tiny bit up or down on that, and it doesn't take much movement to really make a big effect. So just a little bit here and there. Now the other thing that you can do here, this little droplet over here, this is a blur droplet. So if I tap on the blur, I can choose either a straight line blur or a round blur. So I'm going to choose a round blur for this square image. And now I take my two fingers on the screen and just put them right here in the center and squeeze them together, and look. I have a little ball that I can position, and everything outside of that sphere is going to have a slight blur to it. You can kind of see it down here a little bit. I'm going to tap on this icon and remove some of that so we can see a little better, and remove our controls so they disappeared. So now you can see there's a little blur, like a blur vignette, around our image. And I like that. So I'm gonna keep that where it is, and I'm gonna go ahead and click on my save icon, and I'm gonna save it. So here's what it looks like. I'm gonna tap save, and I'm saving it out to my camera roll. Now, if I come back into SnapSeed, I want to show you one other thing. I'm sorry, into DistressedFX. One other thing about this that's really cool, if I take my finger and press it on the screen, I am prompted with this question. Do you want me to merge these two into one? Well, the reason you would do this is because you can then add another layer on top. This is just like in Image Blender. We had an option to flatten the images, and it took both of them and put them over on the left side, and it allowed us to add additional images or filters into the app. Well, this is going to let us do the same thing. If we say OK, it's now created this into a flattened image, and we don't have anything now selected in our filters and textures. So we've got none here and none here. So it now allows us to choose another texture if we want. So we can go in and add another texture on top of what we already have. Not that we would, but we might. And again, it gives you just some options for playing with that. And I'm going through and I'm just looking for different things. So I kind of like that. It's pretty color intense. So I'm going to go in and tap my sliders. I can reduce my opacity on the texture and a little bit on the filter. And then I can come up here and I could maybe brighten it a little bit with the left slider there. Maybe that's too much. It doesn't take much. These are very sensitive sliders. And then my contrast a little bit, and maybe back off my color just maybe just a little bit more. So right there. So now we're where we can say tap on these sliders and turn those off. And now we're ready to save our image again. Now there's one other thing that I wanted to show you that you can do with this. And if we slide all the way to the right, there's a custom button. Well, when you tap on custom, I'll just go ahead and do it. It takes you out to your camera roll. Now, if you have purchased other textures, there are different companies that make them. Those of us who use a big camera too might have textures that we've purchased and use with Photoshop, like Totally Rad Dirty Pictures is one. Flypaper Textures, Alien Skin. There's a host of them. Well, you can use this custom button to go out to your camera roll and access those other filters. So talk about customizing. You can create unique images with your own textures. You can even make your own textures by shooting textures of wood or pavement or rusted metal or whatever. I often do that myself. So now I'm going to go ahead and say Okay, I'm going to save. And now let's go look at our camera roll. And there's our image as it is right now. Now, we could stop there, or if we wanted to, we could go back into Formulas. Formulas is the app that we used in the first two sessions. It looks like this. This is the one that is a companion to the app Stackables. Stackables, you create formulas, and then in Formulas there's an app that has a collection of them. So if we open that up, we go get our picture and select it. We could choose another orientation, but I'm just going to click the check mark. And now we can go in and begin to experiment with different textures on top of this image. And tone it down by dialing down in the bottom down here. And so, you know, there's so many different options here. Actually, I kind of like that one a little bit, as long as I can tone it down some more. So again, now we've transformed this into a very different image. We've given it a little bit of really nice mood and tone. It's not as garish in color, and I could go ahead and save that. Before I do, I want to just show you one other thing. Of these formulas down here, I mentioned before that you can star them and make them favorites. But each of these formulas was created by an artist. If you tap on the icon here of the person, it brings up the artist that created that particular texture. You can go out and look at their work on Facebook, Google, and Instagram, and learn a little bit about them, maybe be inspired by their work. It's just kind of cool. I think it's fun to see what other people are doing with this, and this app is a collection of things that were made by people just like us out there doing this stuff. So kind of cool. So I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark, and I'm going to click our save icon here, and I'm going to go back to the camera roll, and there's our final image. And you know, a lot of fun. Now, if I were going to post this on Facebook, I might go into Image Blender and begin to you know, change my or add my signature in here like we've done, and so on. But I'm not going to go through that today. So that's it for that first image. So we looked at SnapSeed, we looked at Enlight to get this distortion, then we went into DistressedFX to add these textures and filters, and then finally we added a formula in the app Formulas to give us this bizarre looking church. Okay, so I know I'm moving quick again, but these are being recorded, so we'll have everything, you know, out there to look at again. So let me go and take a look at our next image, and this one was taken again in the south of France. Oops, where'd you go? Was there last May with a group. I think I mentioned this to you guys. We had a great group of iPhone photographers there for 10 days in the south of France. This image was taken with that other HDR app that we worked with in session 1 called Vivid HDR. And this was set so that when the picture came out, it was set on the outcome called grayscale. It basically is a black and white image. I forgot the name that they give to it. But anyway, gray art, that's it. And so this is straight out of the app Vivid HDR. I think I sent you the a link to the settings that I recommend for that app. If you didn't get those, let me know and I can send them to you. But we talked about this in session 1, so you might go back and take a look and review that. So here's our image. We're going to copy it and take it into SnapSeed. Paste. There we go. So now we're in SnapSeed. And as I look at this, again, I go around and I think, okay, are there any crops or changes that I might need to make? Well, I really like the layout of it, pretty good, the composition, but I do notice down here the shrub is sort of bugging me down here. And I notice there's a little bit of something encroaching on the edge of the frame here. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's crop this part out. So let's go to the pencil, let's go to the crop tool, and I don't want to crop out any more of this than I need to. So what I'm going to do, when I look at my crop options, one of them is this one right here on the end called 554. If I tap on that, look at what happens. It's taking out just a sliver of the image. My width is the same, but it's cutting out just enough basically to remove that little area that we want to be rid of. So I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark, and there's our crop. So there's before and there's after. So now I want to get rid of this little area over here. So I'm going to tap again and go to healing brush, and I'm going to expand this a little bit so I can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to boom, take that out. It's gone. Pretty nicely done. It does a great job of simple removals like that. So now we're ready to start doing our other processing here. So I'm going to go up to the Tune Image. I'm going to go down to Ambiance, and I'm going to crank it to 100. Oh my gosh, look at that. There's before, there's after. Killer. I love it. I'm going to leave it at 100. Then I'm going to go down to highlights. Now highlights, again, I know I'm going to say it again, it's the brightness slider to adjust the brightness of the bright spots in the image. So if I take the slider all the way to the right, look what I've done to the clouds. I've ruined them. But if I take it down to 0 and then take it into the negative, watch what happens as I go into the negative. And if I take it down to about 75%, look at the difference. There's before and there's after. Look at how we've got this great detail in the sky. We've got some drama, and it gives it almost the third dimension. So now I'm going to slide down to shadows. Now again, the shadows is a brightness slider for those shadows in the image. If I go to the right, I lift the shadows, and if I go to the left, I'm darkening them some. I typically like to do that so that I'm getting a little more drama. It doesn't take much in this image, just a tiny bit. And then in the final thing, I'm going to go down to warmth here. Now this is being a black and white image. Warmth is kind of interesting because if we warm this image up, we have the opportunity to turn it into a sepia tone, which is a really cool look for a lot of images, and you may want to choose to do that. And you can control it all the way from 0 to 100 to get the right intensity of that tone that you want. Now you can also take it into a cyanotype, into the blue realm, which can work for some images as well. I wouldn't do it with this one. And for this one, I'm going to keep it with this level of warmth. I'm not going to change it because I know where I'm going with this, and it's going to get a treatment elsewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark. And next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to tap my pencil. I'm going to go to Details. I'm going to sharpen to about 20%. And again, I'm going quickly here, but roughly 20. Now, again, I've sharpened the whole thing, but look at the clouds. See the noise that's been added in the clouds from that sharpening? So what we're going to do, again, is mask it out. Go up here, view our edits, go to our details stack, go out here and choose the brush, and again, I'm telling SnapSeed, sharpen all this area, but leave the clouds alone. So again, I'm just kind of going quickly here, but you get the idea. And now, when I save that, now we've got that sky, and it's not quite as noisy as it was before. So I'm going to do one more thing here. I'm going to do our other classic adjustment here, which is tonal contrast. Again, this is the one that comes in already adjusted, so I'm going to press on the screen, look at before and after. Let me do that one more time. Before and after. It's so subtle, but it is really important. I'm seeing all kinds of detail come back in with this adjustment. Now again, we've got this up here, and I don't really like the noise that it's added to the sky. So once again, I'm going to save this. I'm going to go up to our stacks. I'm going to select tonal contrast, and I'm going to choose the brush, and I'm going to paint all this in and say apply the tonal contrast, but leave it out of the clouds. This is such a simple thing, and it just takes a second to do, but it can make such a difference in the outcome of your image. So now I'm going to say check mark, And there. So now, here's our image. Now look at this. Before, after. It's pretty dramatic. I mean, I feel like I could just walk right into this image. It's just really amazing what it does. So now I'm ready to save this. I'm going to go up here and tap the save icon. Save a copy. And now we can go out and look at our image in camera roll. And there it is. Looking good. So the next app that I want to show you, and this is one that I mentioned in our notes about the webinar, it's called Camera Bag. Now, the one that I like, when you go out and look for it, it's going to look like this. This is Camera Bag. This one down here is called Camera Bag 2. It's okay, but this is the one I really like. It's been around for a long time. It's nothing new, and it's got some quirky little interfaces with it, but I like the outcome, and it's just fun. So I'm going to tap on the Camera Bag icon, and I'm going to just move around. So the way this works, you come in, here's your original, and the first thing you want to do in this app is go up here to the gears. And you want to make sure that you have set the output size to full resolution. I have all these other things turned on because I want to have the option to have these things work. So I have them all turned on. But this right here is the most important thing to set. You want your full resolution. So I'm going to go ahead and tap Done. And now, the way to navigate through this thing, it's really funky. I'm going to take my finger and just swipe across to the right or to the left, either way. And as I swipe, it's bringing up different presets. Now, once I land on a preset, if I tap my finger twice, tap, tap, look at the change. Tap, 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 tap. There's no other way to move through these other than just double tapping on them. And what's really weird is you're cycling through different looks. I don't really know how many different ones there are for each style. If you double tap, you get these different ones. Eventually, you realize you're seeing the same thing over again, but there's no way of selecting the specific thing. Now, you can go up here and tap on this little arrow, and here are all the different types of preset that they have. And so you can choose them from here instead of paging through to find them. The one I really like, and there are others I like too, but I like this Italiano. Maybe it's just sounds romantic, but I'm going to tap on that. And this is what it looks like. It's got this little border, and it's a sepia tone, but as I tap on it, so here we go, tap, tap, and it changes to a little bit darker sepia tone. I'll tap again, tap, tap, and it brightens to a different shade, and tap, tap, and tap, tap. So you get the idea. You can move through this until you find what you like. Well, this is the one that suits me best, and I'm going to go ahead and save it. I'm going to hit the save icon. And let's go back and take a look at that now in our camera roll. So here's where the image that came out of SnapSeed, which, you know, that's an amazing image. I might stop right there, but I do like taking it on to this this sepia tone. You've got an image here with nothing in it that betrays its place in time. This could have been taken in the early 20s or something. It's probably not changed much since the 20s. And so you've got no wires, no lines, no modern anything. So I really like this sepia tone look to it, and the ability to add this little frame, I think, gives it a really nice touch. Now, could you achieve this through other means? Yeah, you could go in and you could give it a sepia tone in SnapSeed. You could use Old Photo Pro that we use, so you could take this image and run it through Old Photo Pro and get a really nice sepia tone. There's lots of different roads to Rome, so to speak, but I like this little app called Camera Bag. It's just a nice, simple, old-fashioned app, if you will, because it's probably been around since 2011 or something. Let's see. I think that's that's about everything that I wanted to cover today. I wanted to just let you know that we have another session 4, next Thursday, and let's see. Oh, I know. I wanted to share with you a couple of things. Let me back out of here and come over here. I want to go out and look at my my website. I wanted to let you know I just became, in the last well, just this year, I became an associate editor with this website called Luminous Landscape. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. It's a tremendous resource for photographers of all kinds. You can see some of the images here. These were taken by my friend Kevin Raber. He is the CEO of the site. I think it's probably the most visited photographer site on the web. It's they get a lot of traffic. But I've become an associate editor with them, and I recently did my, let's go back to home here. I wrote my first article for them. It's a first in a series of, here it is right here, first in a series of articles about the iPhone and iPhone photography. And I wanted you to be aware of it. This is my first one where I just kind of talked about my approach and why I like it so much. But in the future, I'm going to have other articles that go into different apps and different processes. I'll be talking about other resources, other artists that you might want to follow. So I just wanted to make you aware of it. The one drawback, or I guess it's a drawback, Luminous Landscape is a subscription-only site, but it's only $12, so $1 a month. And the wealth of information here, you get all kinds of reviews of products. Actually, I've done some product reviews for them too, and it's just a really valuable site, regardless of the kind of photography you do. And now they're also beginning to focus a little more on iPhone photography. So I wanted to let you know about that. The other thing, let me see here. Let me go to, here it is. If I go to my website, the other thing that I just had the opportunity to write, maybe you guys saw it on my site, but the Verizon Corporation, I've had a relationship with them for a couple of years now, and I've written for their regional newsletters. They sent me a Google Pixel phone to play with, and the Google Pixel, you might have seen, is one of those phones that's kind of competitor to the Samsung Galaxy and the iPhone 7 Plus and so on. And I got to take it through its paces and write about it. And I talk about it here, and I wanted you to be aware of it. You might find the article interesting, and I hope you take time to take a look at it. Beyond that, we've been out here before. You know about my workshops and tours page here. I've got tours coming up all around the world. We've got Cuba coming up. I'm leaving here next week for Cuba with a small group, and then going again in November. And we have room in that trip if anybody cares to join us. Fonthill Castle, extraordinary opportunity to photograph the castle, Eastern State Penitentiary, Longwood Gardens, and so on. So, and then Ireland in August with Peter Cox, Irish native Peter Cox. Tremendous opportunity to photograph the western shores of Ireland. We're going to the Palouse with John Barclay in the spring, and with my partner Sally Wolf in the fall. And then John and I are doing the Smoky Mountains in spring and fall next year. And then Betty Wiley, East Coast photographer, will be doing the North Shore and Provincetown in the fall, in September. So just a bunch of things going on. I also just found out when I was in college, I had a friend who was who's from the United Arab Emirates in Abu Dhabi, and Riyadh and I have stayed in touch over the years, and I just booked a flight to go visit him in March, and I'm going to be over there scouting for a trip to the Middle East, and I've wanted to go there since I was a little kid and read about Aladdin, and so I'm going to get to do that, and I'll be sharing some images. And if anybody has any interest in joining a trip out there, send me a note, and I will add you to my my early notification list. I'm also, just one last thing in closing, I'm working on some other opportunities for teaching via the web. I'm looking at a beginner's course, which is very, takes us into the basic tools of the cameras and the various apps. But I'm also going to be doing some things that are more advanced. If there are any particular topics that you would be interested in, if I were to cover them in a webinar like this, please send me a note. Let me know what you'd like to see, and if it's something that's in my repertoire that I know about, maybe I can cover it in a webinar in the future. I think that's about it as far as things I wanted to mention. Oh, there is one more thing actually. I do webinars for Topaz as well, and I just did one. Yes, what's today? Friday? Yeah, Tuesday. I did one on Tuesday, and there's a discount code out there if you're at all interested in acquiring the Topaz things. I've got a 25% off discount code you can find if you go to my website or my Facebook site. You'll see it there on where to go and how to use that. It's 25% off anything they offer in the store. I like their products because I can use them on big camera images and do many of the things that I do on the iPhone, but on the desktop. So it's just another approach to get into the same kind of creative expression. Anyway, all right, I'm rambling. I'm done. I'm going to stop. I want to thank all of you for being here today, and by all means, send me your questions, and I look forward to seeing you next week. And until then, have fun. Keep on shooting.